What's up, my witches? Welcome back to my channel. I am the City Witch, and today we're going to be reviewing Entering Hecate's Cave, The Journey Through Darkness to Wholeness by Cindy Brennan, author of Entering Hecate's Garden and Keeping Her Keys. And before I deep dive into this book review, I just want to take a moment to appreciate how beautiful this front cover is. Check that out, guys. I love the artwork on this book. It is so gothically glorious. I mean, look at all the cute little faces. I mean, to me, these look like little spirits or maybe ghosts. Oh, but so cute. And I love this skull wrapped in a snake in this corner. So pretty. So yeah, I just wanted to get that on my system because I love the front cover of this book. I'm going to start my book review by talking about the neutrals. As the front cover says, this book is going to take you on a journey through darkness to wholeness. So it's important that you know that this is a shadow work book. It is a highly spiritual book that's going to take you on a journey deep into Hecate's caves in order to self-reflect, to face the darker aspects of yourself, to heal from past traumas and wounds and any psychological damage you might have gone through. This is a book that will help you work through all of the darknesses that you've experienced and go on a journey towards wholeness, enlightenment, and to living a more spiritual life. Therefore, this book definitely is more of a spiritual book than a witchy book. The two tend to be interchangeable a little bit, and they do cross paths from time to time, the spiritual and the witchy. However, when I worked through this book, I would say at least a good 95% of it is more spiritual. So you will go on meditations and journeys. You will work with Hekate through the various chapters in order to work through your own darknesses. There are a couple of things which are ritualistic in nature, but there really isn't any spell work or witchy stuff to do other than the odd ritual and the meditations and visualizations, which probably are more spiritual. So I just wanted to say that so that you're aware that this is more of a spiritual journey than a magical one. Because this book dives very heavily into shadow work and will bring up traumas, it may be very triggering for some of you out there, so please be aware of that. For that reason, I don't think this is a suitable book for a beginner, certainly not somebody who's a novice in witchcraft and not somebody who's beginning their journey with Hekate. This is an intermediate level book, and you need to have the foundations of witchcraft and spirituality down. You need to have walked the path, I'd say, for at least a couple of years and have established a good relationship with Hekate before you go on this journey. And when you work through this book, it's going to take you a long time, guys. It took me the better part of a year to properly finish this book and get through it. And I didn't want to rush it. I wanted to take my time. I wanted to take the journeys very seriously. And I wanted to work through the exercises and the practical stuff given to give this book a good chance of aiding me in my path. So I do recommend dedicating time to this book, working through it chapter by chapter, one at a time. And then when you've completed the book, there are things you will probably end up going back to. There's also chapters that might make you pause and you may struggle to get through them, which means it's bringing something up for you and it's doing its job. So it means it's working, but it also means that there's something there that you perhaps need to take your time with and maybe be a bit delicate with yourself in the process. So let's start by taking a look at the back of the book, and then I will show you the contents of the book. So it says, to the ancients, the goddess Hekate symbolized the inner journey back to the soul. Philosophers identify her as Anima Mundi, the soul of the world. As such, she connects many archetypes associated with the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. From her role as protector of roadways to her power as the bringer of death, she offers us keys to healing. Incorporating her own personal experiences with those of her students, Cindy Brennan weaves a supporting circle around the reader as they start their path towards soulful living, culminating in rebirth. Blending symbolism, transcendent experiences, dreams, and natural magic with sound psychological theories and practices. Entering Hecate's cave is an in-depth spiritual journey through the truths and traumas of one's past to a rebirth and renewal of personal wholeness. I could not have said that better myself, which is why I thought it's best I read that to you so you kind of get an idea of what you're going to experience in this book. So let's take a look at the chapters. Okay, so each chapter you will work with a different epithet connected to Hekate. And each epithet will take you on a journey to face certain aspects of yourself. The book starts with an introduction, which Cindy Brennan lovingly labelled The Call, because you have to be called to do this work, guys, and you have to be ready to face this type of work as well. And when you're called to it, you will know. You will just feel like you're ready to go deeper in your practice, to enter Hecate's cave and descend into darkness, and to allow her to help you on your journey and show you the reality of who you are. So you're going to be faced with some hard truths, basically. The introduction was absolutely fantastic. It talks about setting up an altar and making space for Hekate in your life. It talks about the tools that you will need. So there are crystals that she recommends getting, and each crystal is connected to a different epithet. She also recommends preparing yourself in certain ways and mentions other spirits that might come through as you walk this journey, many of which are animal spirit guides. Then chapter 1 is called Anima Mundi, the Deeper World. Chapter 2, Claes, the Keys. And please no one come for me if I'm saying these words wrong. They're quite difficult to pronounce, some of them, and I'm doing my best, okay? So Claes, the Keys was chapter 2. Chapter 3, Triformis, the Transformation. Chapter 4, Draconeia, the Awakening. Chapter 5, Enodia, the Crossroads. Chapter 6, Propylaea, the Threshold. Chapter 7, Cothonia, the Descent. Chapter 8, Lapidolus, the Illumination. Chapter 9, Borborophobia, the Catharsis. Chapter 10, Scotia, the Darkness. Chapter 11, Pianosis, the Healer. Chapter 12, Psychopump, the Soul Guide. Chapter 13, Rixipel, the Chainbreaker. Chapter 14, Anassa Inorai, the Death Queen. And chapter 15, Kori, the Rebirth. There is a beautiful conclusion at the end that kind of summarises everything that you've gone through. And then there is an appendix, which is a list of all the practical exercises and rituals that were given in this book, so that if you want to go back to them at a later date, they're easier to find. And then there's a lovely closing word from Cindy in the end notes, which kind of just closes the book up quite nicely. I will show you some of what's inside the book and the way it's laid out. So the first thing is you get the title of the chapter, and then you get a beautiful image here that can be used as a sigil or a seal or something that you can work with to focus during meditation and visualization. And a lot of these beautiful little images I printed off, and I used them when I was working through the chapter. So whatever I was doing, if I was doing a meditation, I used it to help me focus on that epithet of Hecate's before I closed my eyes and went into the meditation. Sometimes I drew the symbols onto my skin using oils or eyeliner. Other times I carved them into the candle I was working with, and I took my time each time I worked with these symbols and the items that Cindy recommends. And I didn't rush any of these chapters. I just kind of let myself go through the chapters as I needed to. Some I worked through very quickly, realizing that actually I didn't have anything to do in that section, and others took me a lot longer to get through. You also get a beautiful poem or ode or incantation to Hekate. So I'll read you this one for the call. It says, "In complete darkness, I tumbled down, 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 until I landed at the bottom. Broken open, outpoured my soul, which formed into a key, held by a mysterious woman who held her lantern high, whispering, 'Follow me.'" Beautiful, right? The book is filled with those. You also get some lovely poetry, odes to Hekate, chants that you can say during your practice and your journey with her. Some of the chapters are more in depth than others, and you get these beautiful symbols and sigils throughout the book. There is a section on enchanting the crafted sigils within this book. And here I'll just kind of show you that close up. But these here are all connected to the different chapters you're going to work through. You will meet different spirits along your journey. So Cindy chose to talk about those here and mention them. There was the stones I was talking about, the crystals. So for Triformis, she recommends working with fluorite. Draconea was amethyst. Enodia was smoky quartz. Propylaea was rose quartz. Chthonium was black obsidian. Lapidolus was tiger's eye. Borophobia was red jasper. Scotia was clear quartz. Pioneus was rhodochrosite. Psychopump was mysterious shungite. Rixipel was garnet. Anassa Inori was rainbow moonstone, and Cori was selenite. So they're all the crystals that you're going to need if you want to work through this book. Now, you don't have to work with the crystals, it's just a suggestion. However, I already owned all of those crystals in my collection, so I just pulled them out, cleansed them off, and then as I started my chapter, I used the symbol at the beginning of each chapter to help charge and connect me with that epithet of Hekate. And then every time I did a meditation or went deep into her cave, I held that crystal or wore it on a necklace on my neck. Each chapter is very different. Some of them you will get a lot to do. Others you will get just simple suggestions. So here we cover fears in chapter 2. We've got self-reflection work. So as you can see, that's quite small, but in the introduction, there was a lot to do to prepare you for the work in this book, which is one of the things I actually think is a positive. You're being prepared for the work when you read the introduction, told what you need and how to set up and prepare for your journey with Hekate. So here, triple goddess altar, so setting up the altar. I said you get these beautiful symbols. And throughout the book, we get images. So this here was a practical exercise, a meditation called Unifying the Three Selves. And I actually enjoyed this so much that now I've incorporated it monthly into my dark moon ritual at Depnon for Hekate. So this is something that I like to do regularly with her because I found it aligned me and in tuned me in a certain way that I enjoyed. So I've continued to do that for the time being. We have Enodia, Thresholds, the Wounded Healer. So these are just some of the things that you will be doing. So with Chthonium, we've got descent and deconstruction, so stripping away who you are to get to the core root. Energy and attention, so where is your energy flowing? Do you pay attention to it? Boundaries and self-protection and setting healthy boundaries. That was very interesting. one of the practical exercises with that one was about knowing your limits and recognizing when you're coming close to reaching that limit. We've got the torchbearer and illuminating your path, working with the shadow, self and soul vision journeys. The shadow mask talisman. I actually already had a mask that I worked with, which is a wolf, and I decided to kind of repurpose it for this ritual. But there are some things you will need to buy and get, or things that are suggested. Another alternative for that though was perhaps painting your face, if you don't mind face paints. Borophobia. This epithet in particular I connected with really powerfully. And I'm just going to read you the poem. Borophobia, 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 catharsis, catharsis, catharsis. Mother of the cave, eater of filth, goddess of bones, mother of the cave, eater of filth, goddess of bones, mother of the cave, eater of filth, goddess of bones. Borophobia, 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 catharsis, catharsis, catharsis. I mean, some of the poetry and the words given in this book is extremely powerful and easily adaptable. Here's another one that I am going to repeat. So this one was a ritual of catharsis. So it involved candles and your stone and an offering from Hekate, sacred oils, and it was just a really nice ritual, and I just wanted to redo it because I feel like I can get more out of that. So like I said, many of these things you will probably go back to, and the appendix at the back will help you find some of the rituals and meditations easily, so you know where they were and in what chapter. And some chapters you might not do straight away. You may choose to skip over it, or you may find that that chapter doesn't hold any substance for you yet. Like there's nothing there for you to do, no work that can help you because you haven't gone through anything that was relevant to that chapter. And that's completely fine, guys. You're not going to need to do all of these chapters. However, I do suggest that you read over them just in case and make sure that you are being honest with yourself on this journey, because I think that's also important, is your honesty, because if you're fooling yourself, then you're not fooling anyone else, you're literally only fooling yourself. So let's talk about the positives. Each chapter offered a unique look at some of Hecate's various epithets, providing insight into how they can be used in different ways for your personal journey of growth. The book contains some lovely poems, mantras and odes to Hekate that I personally enjoyed and have continued to read and dedicate those readings to Hekate. Every chapter starts with an incantation or a poem that can easily be used in your practice. And if you want, you could even adapt them. There is a unique symbol for each epithet that can be used in meditations or in ritual work. And I've given some examples in this video of how I chose to do that. One of the ways that I chose to do that was carving the symbol into a candle, working with that candle through that chapter and using the candle as kind of like a focal point for my magic, my energy, when I was working through that chapter. For each epithet, you also get practical exercises to do, complete with tips and suggestions from Cindy. And one of the things that I did appreciate about Cindy was she actually gave personal experiences throughout the book of what she went through in regards to that epithet and connecting with Hekate. And she gave examples from some of her students as well, who have also done the work in this book. And that was really nice, really comforting, because it kind of helped you realize that you're not the only one going through this, and many of the experiences you've had, while they're unique to you, there are people out there who've gone through something very, very similar. And when I was reading the stories, I didn't feel so alone. I didn't feel like I was doing this journey isolated. I felt connected to everybody who in turn connects to Hekate, like a big collective and a family. And it was just beautiful. So I appreciated that from Cindy quite a bit. I personally connected strongly with Draconea, Enodia, Chthoniya, and Boroborophobia and Rixipel. Now, Boroborophobia, I had a really interesting journey with that particular epithet of Hecate's. Now, at the time, I was going through something quite major in my life. A friend of 20 years had kind of been revealed to me as someone that I actually didn't truly know. You know, when the mask gets lifted and you see someone for who they really are deep down inside, and they majorly betray you and let you down, and you're just truly hurt and disappointed by them. That was something that I went through. And I actually met Boroborophobia just before I worked through the chapter in this book that was about her. And she came to me when I entered Hecate's cave, and I was facing her bone altar, and I was telling Hekate about what I'd gone through, what I'd just discovered. I was in a lot of pain, I was very hurt, and I was very upset, and I'm not ashamed to say I was crying, I was broken. I loved this person. She was very important to me. She was like a sister to me, and we built a friendship over 20 years. And to discover this betrayal and the lies, which had been going on for 2 years, which she'd actively hidden from me, it was a shock. So I went to my goddess. Hekate is my primary goddess. She's my patron. And 2 years ago, she asked me to be her high priestess. So I'm one of the priestesses of Hekate. And I went to her because I wanted to discuss this with her and make her aware of what I was going through, and there was going to be a change in my energy and path as a result. And this was how I met Boroborophobia. She, for the first time, presented herself to me in a way that I'd never seen before. Usually for me, she's beautiful, dark-haired, and has these beautiful black cloaks. She's wearing keys, and sometimes she has a staff or a wand, sometimes she doesn't. But she always presents herself quite young and beautiful. On this occasion, she was slightly more withered or sick looking. She was still young, but she was sick looking. Like, her skin was kind of yellowed and greyed, like there was something wrong with her liver. I could see veins and spots on the skin, and her eyes were more sunken and dark. Her clothes were a little bit on the tatty, raggy side, and she told me, after giving me a hug and embracing me, which was interesting because Hekate is not really a hugger, but obviously I was so broken that she must have felt in that moment I needed that. And she told me that she can take away the filth. And she waited for me to agree, and I thought about it, and I trusted her, so I said, yes, take the filth. And before my eyes, guys, she transformed into this giant black slug-like, almost snake-like thing. And she swallowed me whole, and she dug her fangs into my back, and she pulled out the toxic black tar, kind of like a miasma, out of my body, and I could feel it leaving me. And she actually took some of my pain and sadness with it. And when she was done, she reverted back into being a woman, but she was young and beautiful again. It's like the energy she took from me started as poison, but she transformed it into something better. She then told me that she will keep hold of that toxic energy, and should I wish it, she can give it back for it to be used in another format, which is something I didn't know about that epithet. So when I did my research and realised I'd encountered Boroborophobia, one of the things that my research told me was that she can take toxic things out of your life, which in my case, she quite literally sucked it out of me, and she can store and hold on to that. And she can do this with curses and hexes and malefic energy, and she can either transform it, so we're talking about transmutation magic, or she can keep it in its toxic form and you can use it in your own curses and baneful workings, or she can give it right back to whoever gave it to you in the first place and did that damage. So as of yet, I've not used that toxic energy, but just knowing it's there in case was interesting. And my journey with Borophobia was completely transformative for me. And that was the chapter that took me the longest to work through, and I took my time. And then from that, I worked with Rick Sapel for part of my healing journey and breaking away from this friend who betrayed me. So I went through deep cord cutting rituals and I went through weeks and weeks of healing. I mean, this journey, guys, has been months of work. And then finally one day she said, it is done. Like, I'm free of that connection and I've done the work, the hard work. And this book was invaluable to my journey getting through that. So Cindy, if you ever watch this video, thank you so much, because your book was a vital tool in my personal journey going through that experience, and I appreciate everything you put into this book. Now for the negatives, and there really are not many negatives. There was only 2 points that I have about this book. So chapter 10 is called Scotia, and the chapter talked non-stop about a completely different deity, a Scottish Celtic goddess, and I'm going to try and say her name right, and I've heard it pronounced 2 ways. So one of the ways I've heard it pronounced was the Kalish, and the other way was the Kalach. And I think I'm saying that right, but I could be butchering it, so my apologies. But she's a Scottish, Celtish / Irish goddess who Cindy was trying to connect in a really peculiar way to Hekate. And this chapter kind of felt all wrong for me and didn't actually take a look at Scotia properly, in my opinion. I felt like the subject was too much about the Kalish and not enough about Hekate in that epiphetical form. And for me, that was the chapter I struggled with the most. Not because I had work to do with that chapter, but because I just didn't enjoy it. And that was just my personal preference and opinion, guys. Most people out there, I think, have enjoyed that chapter and said it was very helpful to them, which is great, fantastic. But for me, it wasn't the greatest chapter. It was the weakest one in this book. Cindy often uses other deities connected to Hekate and their stories to illuminate Hecate's various roles within those stories. And the important role she played was often as guide, guardian, or gatekeeper. However, at times, the focus and the topic shifted just a little bit too much onto these other deities or spirits, losing focus from the main topic, which is the epithet of Hekate that we're trying to talk about and discuss. For me, when that happened, I would say that the focus needed to be brought back to Hekate and there needed to be slightly less talk about these other deities and spirits. Now, I loved the stories, and there was actually a lot of stories in this book that I didn't know, or stories that I did know, but they were presented in a really different way, which could be Cindy's personal preference or how she translated the stories and what she thought about them. But I definitely went away and did more research because of the stories in this book, and I connected with a lot of them as well in my life personally, and it did give me more layers to Hekate. But I still think that some of the chapters focused a tiny bit too much on these other deities and not enough on Hekate. So again, that's just my personal preference and what I noticed about the book. In conclusion, this was an inspirational, insightful, helpful book for those who are ready to heal their trauma and progress to the next stage of their spiritual journey. For me in particular, this highlighted various epithets to work with in my path that aided me in current life experiences that I was going through when I did this book and all of the various exercises within it. I didn't need to do every exercise, but the ones I did do, I found to be helpful and interesting and enlightening. I highly recommend this book, and I personally score it an 8.5 out of 10. I am very happy to have this book in my collection. I will absolutely be keeping it. And once again, guys, this is probably an intermediate level book, not suitable for a beginner. And be aware, it is a book where you will deep dive into your traumas and your darknesses. So be prepared for that. And if you feel you need to stop at any point in your journey, do so. Check in with yourself, be delicate with yourself, and take your time. That is the best advice I can give you. Thank you so much for watching my book review. I do hope that you have enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and click the bell. YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. If you'd like to offer light, love, and support to my channel and my small growing business, you can do that through my Amazon wishlist and my PayPal link. Both are provided. If you wish to contact me to discuss anything I've said in this video or witchcraft in general, or if you'd like to contact me to book a consultation for any of my magical services, you can do that through Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, X, and via email. All the links are provided, guys. Thank you so much for supporting me and watching till the end. I do appreciate it. Many blessings upon you, and may Hekate guide you. Blessed be.